What?
Go get a tricoin.
Tricoin?
Yeah.
I've got I've got it right up in the corner here. We're going to talk a little bit about porpoise, purpose.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and Guest.
It's Judah and Guest. What I meant to do wasn't that. I meant to do this. You sent this to me. Find your porpoise.
Find your porpoise. Where is my porpoise?
You know,
I need a porpoise statement.
I was on the ocean and this week, and the captain of the ship, knowledgeable guy, but he said that there's a difference between porpoises and dolphins. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. But I think, and I'm no expert, but I think they're all porpoises. Dolphins are sort of a nomenclature given to it, but dolphins are actually a different kind of fish. A dolphin fish is a mahi. I don't know. But anyways, there were tons of them. There are more porpoises than I've ever seen out in the ocean recently.
I suppose that's a good sign.
Well, you know what it is I think there was a warning that my kids pointed out to me. They started counting all the jellyfish they were seeing. And they saw like hundreds and counted them all. And then we got a warning saying that there was a jellyfish rash of jellyfish or whatever it is. So, but I think they eat those. I think the porpoise love those. I don't know. I heard that somewhere, but can't confirm or deny.
I don't know.
Where do we? Oh yeah, so purpose. I just wanted to talk about purpose, and purpose may not be the right word. I am an optimistic guy. I'm a happy, optimistic guy. And recently I have been struggling. Now, circumstances be as they may, particular to me, there are circumstances all over the world right now, I feel, that are constraining the purposes of man. I feel like government right now, I do believe that government is at odds with the church. And I don't believe there are some churches dear to my heart that are complying more with government.
Okay.
And you know, that saying that I've been saying is that there are things that are worse than COVID. You know, there are things worse than COVID. I was thinking about purposelessness. I just saw that 7 out of 10 millennials, I don't know how they categorize millennials, but 7 out of 10 millennials report struggling with depression right now. And like I said, so I started by saying I'm an optimistic, happy dude. I mean, I usually feel bright. And I've been fighting the darkness lately, man. It's just been, and even with, I was able to get out in the woods with you and really, just get in touch with nature. And I think the thing that I'm struggling with the most is, I don't know, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. Is this? It does feel like a constraint that's been put on us. A fear that's been propagated.
Okay.
And it may be a valid fear. I'm not quite sure. I vacillate. But I do know that it is killing something. It's killing lots of people. The fear, the depression, and the darkness is killing lots of people, and maybe more than the disease.
It's inhibiting life, right? Like it's got a stranglehold on living well.
Well, say more
it-
about that. That's interesting. A stranglehold. That is a very good characterization.
Well, I mean, I
A
hear you. Like
stranglehold on living well.
like when you say it's killing people, there's a part of me that wants to say, well, I mean, in a sense, yes. And then, maybe another way that might be more accurate is to say that, how is it affecting wellness? How is it affecting life? And I do think it's something that we need to stop and just say it again. There are worse things than COVID. And what are those things? Like what?
Well, one of them I think is purposelessness, and that may sound trite.
A lack of purpose.
Lack of porpoises.
A lack of purpose.
As flippant as we can be about it.
But I think purpose is an interesting issue in the sense of, like, I know when we kind of texted before the Not a Show, this role of government, and I think in this day and age, I just really, well, this is a bias. I don't really want to give the government more power than I think it really has. And so, one of the things I think we've heard from the get-go with COVID is seeing the role, like let's just talk about the Center for Disease Control. It's really, is that an NGO technically? Is that a non-governmental organization possibly? They're an organization. Well, let's look at it this way. They're not the judiciary, they're not the legislature, and they're not the executive office. They are, however, an organization with authority, right? And not necessarily authority to do something, but an authority based on information, an authority based on their ability to influence policy. And policy influences laws, and policy is going to influence how we act and react. But purpose, and I think this is my struggle sometimes with purpose. Yes, things have changed. But if we've got a rigid purpose that doesn't flex, then it doesn't adjust to the environment. And I think that, for me, is where we get into a jam.
I don't disagree.
It frustrates, right? I mean, like,
well, that's the thing. The government does not control our purpose, but the government does control the medium by which we paint it, right? Like, the propagation,
it constrains.
It constrains in the sense that. So my father's biggest problem, now I'm anti-mask, but I'm not anti-mask like my father. Sure. And his biggest problem with the mask is the detriment to communication, relationship, and smiling. He talks a lot about the detriment that not being able to read people's positive emotions.
Or any emotions,
or negative, or any emotions.
Yeah, I mean, right? You're not getting the full.
The flat affect of a mask is deadening to the human soul. That's what he says, and so
I would agree.
I agree, and I understand. See, the difficulty I have. Masks to me isn't the problem as much as the fear of, the cultivating, the turning the cauldron of fear that is happening by our government, including Trump, making us feel like we can't, making us feel evil for congregating, making us feel evil for relationship. I think there's something evil about that.
Okay. Making us feel evil.
Making us feel that it's evil to congregate, and therefore breaking down defines
wrong, immoral, unethical,
yeah.
dangerous, irresponsible,
Yeah. Evil. They're
evil,
flat out. People are saying you're evil. You know, at this point, I was looking at some
it's a broad
message boards
characterization
on
of a
Facebook.
person.
What's that?
It's anytime I hear that kind of broad characterization of a human being,
Sorry. Wait,
it's
just a
alarm.
Whenever I get a
That in and of
call,
itself is
I
alarming.
got to decline that. Well, I'm sorry. What was that you said? I got
That was
muted.
probably an important call. They were probably calling you about the warranty on your car. At least that's the ones I get.
Yes, that's definitely.
Yeah, I guess there's a part of me that so it's twofold. Whenever I hear that kind of broad global characterization of another human being, I'm a little bit alarmed because I think that's really dangerous, because it's not it doesn't take a couple of leaps when you characterize someone globally as evil to put them in a concentration camp or to exterminate them. It's not that far of a jump.
Or to ban them from social media.
Or to ban them from social media, or to make them a social pariah. So
Yeah.
On that part, I'm alarmed and concerned. And on the other hand, there's a part of me that goes, whatever. That's ignorant.
I get that.
You know, I mean, that's an ignorant statement. It's a dangerous statement. But
what's the statement? The statement is
that to globally say that someone is evil.
Oh,
I mean, that's painting with a broad brush.
Painting death with a broad brush is
painting someone's actions. Well, I mean, no,
Yeah.
So, like, if someone says, if I run around with no mask and I throw big parties and invite people to not wear a mask, and someone says I'm evil, well, maybe I am evil in that moment, but I'm not. It seems a bit of a stretch to say that I'm globally evil. That's concerning.
But it's happening. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah,
in our rhetoric, people are very quick to use these global statements, and it's dangerous. It's ignorant, and it's dangerous.
Well, the problem I feel is that what it does is it makes people retreat.
Okay.
And so sort of a tangential danger to, to the overt danger of just calling people evil. It causes people to retreat. I feel like I've retreated quite a bit.
Okay.
One, I don't want to be called evil. I don't want to be called evil.
I hear you. I don't want to be called. I suppose I don't want to be. Yeah. I mean, eventually I'll be called evil.
Yes, I know I will be. I have.
Yeah,
I am. Yes.
I don't go out of my way, but I'm sure somebody has said that. How have you withdrawn? Like, what have you not done that you would have normally done were there not this specter of the evil label?
Well, I felt it most before I left, before I moved. I don't know if I felt it more. Yeah, I felt it most in Illinois, but even here in North Carolina, I've withdrawn as far as my ideas, being forthright about my ideas, my my perspective on the issues, and I feel like I have withdrawn from people.
Okay,
so I in the sense that, like, I'm not sure where they're at, and I want to be kind.
Well,
I don't want to, and there is a part of me that would rather just not engage rather than dance with the, you know, the whole, should I come in? Should I shake your hand? Should I, whatever. It's more effort than it's worth it. Now, I don't believe intellectually, I don't believe that, but but there is a point in which I think just like it, and I think that it comes between. I mean, there's just far less places of interaction. So not just have I withdrawn, but there are less points of connection in society now. And so I feel that's where the lack of purpose, that's what I guess what I was getting to with the lack of purpose.
Well,
A little bit.
Well, okay. So I mean, the big behavior. I mean, I hear you saying like I've held off on being
Vocal.
As
vocal. I still
yeah. Well, I would say you're a pretty vocal guy. And there's a part of me that wants to say like, well, I mean, us talking together tonight is really thanks to COVID.
Yes,
ironically, not kind of. And I look at I guess so. There's a part of me that wants to look at this like short game, long game.
Okay.
So short game,
I like
that. Short game, yeah. This sucks. This is awful. This is really constricting. Like this is not life lived to its fullness. It's life lived with a stranglehold.
Well, do you think it has? I believe it has some permanent ramifications, or at least semi-permanent ramifications.
Well, okay. We'll circle back to that.
Okay.
Short game, it sucks. It's awful. Long game, I'm wondering how is this going to change things that can be an opportunity?
I like that.
Going back to hinting around purpose, but like how is this going to change things? Like how is this going to change education? How is this going to change businesses done? How is this going to change like the world I work in within the realm world of therapy and mental health?
Mm-hmm.
Some for the better and some maybe for the worse. I'm just going to assume that we're going to get a heavy dose of both. And I guess I keep my eye on the long game. But we were going to come back around to something that I've already forgotten about.
Well, the permanent repercussions.
Okay, yeah. So permanent repercussions. What do you think is going to be permanent from this? And in particular, maybe like how is that going to impact purpose?
Yeah, well, I think there is going to be I would say not necessarily permanent, permanent in the sense of, and permanent is forever, but long lasting repercussions in the sense that people will
some enduring
working from home.
Okay.
Churches seem to be hit the hardest for some reason.
I see.
Well, not for some reason, for the reason of gathering. I guess gathering in general is going to be hit hardest.
There's a part of me that thinks this is an opportunity. Like this is.
Talk to me about that. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah. So I mean, if I learned anything from COVID, it's that I was not taking my faith seriously. That, if we're going to relegate it to just simply when we congregate, then we've all just hang it up. Hang it up.
Yeah.
Just hang it up and reevaluate. It, on the one hand, yes. I mean, I hear what you're saying about like, being complete. There are worse things than COVID, and there is such an atmosphere of fear, and in some states, I mean, just downright regulation as far as like do not congregate, and it begs again we're going back to there are worse things than COVID. What's essential begging the question of what's essential. And we found out that, again, kind of when we started talking, Home Depot is essential, but Jesus and the body of Christ, and the chalice is not,
Right.
according to the government. But part of that, though, is, in my perspective, an indictment on Christianity. Because if it's a spectator event,
Mm-hmm.
then it can be virtual. If it's not embodied, it can be virtual. And there are some loud voices coming from Christian quarters that are saying, no, it is embodied. And,
If it's incarnal,
it's incarnate. Yeah.
Incarnate has to be to me, has to be in person.
Yeah.
It just
and that's coming from, Orthodox quarters of the world, and Roman Catholic quarters of the Christian world, and Protestant and evangelical quarters of the Christian world, that have said, you know what, this is essential, and we're not going to back down from this. It's not to say that we can't come up with some safe, reasonable, way to do, to come together as the body of Christ in the midst of a pandemic. But the discussion about what's essential and what's not, like, there's a line. There's a line in the sand there.
Here's the thing: is that when this first started, someone said to me, well, how long do we do this? And I hadn't even thought that. Like, what is the limit? When do we say, okay, that's enough? We're going to have to go back to regular life, because regular life is important.
It is.
And at this point, I feel like people don't believe that. And what bothers me is that people in the church don't believe that regular life together is important. Scriptures like greet each other with a holy kiss. I realize that we're not supposed to, go around, mouthing each other, but there is something important about intimacy, and the degrees of intimacy. And I feel like the mask, the social distancing, everything just are degrees, more and more degrees of separation that cuts off. I don't see, this is why I brought up purposelessness. I don't think it just cuts off relational bonds. I think within the cutting off of those relational bonds and the distancing, it cuts off purposefulness, because I think people, well, I won't say, I don't know about people. I know about me. As I've been cut off from people more and more, I feel less and less connected to purposefulness.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's primarily because I am a gregarious people person.
Yeah.
But even my wife told me today, she said, my wife is a hermit. She's a female hermit. I guess you don't have to designate gender, but she would love to just stay in her room and read the rest of her life. So we thought. But she said,
so we thought.
Well, she said, honey, I need to be with people.
Human beings need to be with people. And all of these things, social distancing, masks, these are barriers to connection. I think to a certain degree, there's a level of creativity that we can engage in to overcome those barriers to a point. But it inhibits life. And when you texted me, like, we're going to talk about purpose, and
you cringed. I saw you cringe through the text.
Yeah. I had to think about it. Like, I mean, there's different, I guess in my mind, there are layers of purpose, right? I mean, like, I've got a purpose for what we're doing tonight, and I've got a purpose for why I am hanging out in this little part of my house.
Yeah.
And then more broadly, I mean, like from a cosmic perspective, what's the purpose? And the purpose, I think, is love. Um, and the difficult thing is what's going on right now in the midst of this pandemic. Some of these things make love very difficult. Um, in the most gracious perspective, some of the things we're doing is also love.
Maybe I hear that a lot.
To a point, right? I mean, like we can,
It
people
may
can,
be.
People there's aspects of quote unquote love that are just horribly toxic, or what is called love is horribly
Yeah.
toxic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so it even like, and that's the hard thing. Like for purpose, when I thought like, well, the purpose is love. That
That's cringy.
that sounds good, right? But if you look at it really hard, yeah, it can get a little cringy because it's a one word kind of trite statement, that
Yeah.
when you hit the ground running, like it you gotta work through it a little bit more.
Right. Well, let's work through it. And I think we are. Because I think when it comes to love, let's break that down. That's why I said purpose rather than love, because I think the purpose of man is
Have
be
purpose.
love and be loved. I think that's the purpose of man, and in particular God, and we experience that love through connection, and and I think as government disrupts that connection, right? They don't shut it down. They can't. But as they disrupt that connection, I do feel there is something wildly dark about that.
Well, there's no doubt that what's going on is wildly dark. And again, I go back to, I don't want to give the government more power or credit than they're due, because I just don't think they're that important.
But they could be effective. They don't have to be important to be effective.
Well, I wonder if it's. I mean, so what has the government done to you, Judah? That
they have framed.
Because government just sounds so faceless and nebulous.
Right. I mean, and it's not one person, right? It's a group of people with, their own interests. However, there is an interest, I believe. I'm not quite sure what that interest is, but there is an interest in keeping us controlled, in keeping us keeping us at home. I think particularly during this election, I think there are interests to state by state. I think it's different state by state, but there are interests in keeping us fearful, voting for things that we normally might not if we weren't fearful. If we were, everything's okay, why would I vote for a flat tax? That's Illinois.
Well, is Illinois thinking about a flat tax?
Mm-hmm. On top of that, all the other taxes.
That'll go over well.
It's polling well. It's the governor has a 36% increase in approval, because people are afraid. All you have to do is mandate things, mandate safety, and then he's doing he's protecting us.
Yeah,
he cares about us.
He does. Yeah, he's there for you, to protect you. Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's a part that wants to undermine that whole narrative.
I understand.
Like, because I want to get personal. I mean, like, because when I hear about shame and when I hear about like somebody calling me evil, like there's no government official that's going to show up on my door and give me a letter from some 3-letter agency that says we have found that you are evil. That's going to come from some neighbor, from somebody with a face and a name that I care about,
Mhm.
maybe, or that I know has some influence in my life. And I doubt that they're a government agent.
Well, okay, yes, the government agents aren't the ones I'm afraid of. In
Okay,
fact, right now, it's the social media agents that
the
have more
social
power.
media. Well,
We were
yeah,
just talking about
we,
that before this.
you're going to pull it in, aren't you?
I'm
Um,
trying.
well, so, but again, like even social media. So, and
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this today. Yes, we talked earlier that I, for many years, off and on, have participated in a very weird um, hobby called
I don't think it's
living.
that weird.
It's not that weird. There are plenty of people that are involved in living history or heritage or reenacting or however you want to call it, dressing up in funny clothes and talking with people about history and volunteering at local historic sites. Yeah, and because I was, I say was past tense, a moderator or whatever I was in this group that, well, to kind of give it some context, I met a guy who was interested in starting in reenacting, and he kind of got the bug, got the ball rolling, and up where he
You've been doing
lives,
this since you were 11, right?
yeah, yeah, off and on since I was 11.
I just
Um,
found that out this
yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been off and on since I was 11, and he started a group, met some people up a little closer to where he lives, and started a Facebook group called the Fincastle/Montgomery County Militia. Um, so Revolutionary War reenacting group focused on the history in the 1770s and 80s in Southwest Virginia. And I guess because of the elections and everything that's going on, militia is like a key word for we can't have that on social media. So Facebook shut that group down, to deleted it, and deleted my entire personal profile, personal page. But honestly, it's given me pause to reevaluate like how I use social media and what I want to do with it now. Like I've heard tangentially in a couple weeks, like it may just reappear. I don't know. Um, but if it doesn't, I, I, going back to purpose, I'm having to
Mm,
reevaluate like what purpose
right.
social media plays in my life and how am I going to
Yeah.
use it. And now that this has occurred to me, like this incident has happened to me, I have to kind
Yeah.
of think through like, okay, I mean, I'm playing in their ballpark, and they, are the kings of the castle. They can delete my stuff at any time or demonic. If I was in business in some way, shape, or form in the social media world, they could demonetize it. Um, there's all kinds of things that could occur, and so it makes me have to reevaluate. Like, what do I want to do? How do I want to do it? Why? Like, for what purpose? Like, what do I want to accomplish here? And
It,
can I do it better next go
I hear you.
around?
And what happens if and when we no longer have a government ruled by constitution,
Uh-huh.
but our society is ruled and organized by social, media moguls, like the CEOs of large companies that we have given over. I mean, honestly, I understand. I have given over that my trust and probably for for the worst, I have given them a lot of my what do you call it, like much more than you. I communicate with my students, I
Oh
communicate
yeah.
with family, I communicate, I do this on social media. If they were to shut mine down, I would be I would be out of a lot of my life.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say you would be out, but because that's what I've been trying to think through this afternoon.
Mm.
Like, I'm not out. I it just changes things.
It does, but I mean, imagine somebody said you can't use a telephone anymore.
It doesn't keep me from. Yeah, I mean, now I've got to pour all of my effort and time into other forms of media. Like we could host this on a website.
Yeah, and I'm hosting it on YouTube at the same time, simultaneously. But it
Also owned by
either,
Facebook, right?
huh?
Which is also owned by Facebook. Isn't it YouTube? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Anyway.
No, it's owned by Google.
Okay, it's owned by. So they've got. Okay, Google's got that. No, it definitely frustrates things. Like it definitely disrupts. But I don't think that changes my purpose.
No,
It
certainly
changes. It changes how I go about achieving my purpose, living out my purpose, how I work my purpose. Like, what am I going to do with the time that's given to me? It frustrates one, like your ability to reach people. Like if the people you want to reach are on Facebook and you are just got the boot off Facebook, then that's sort of, well, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I think that is a key point there, and that's something that I was hoping that we could talk about is purpose beyond the things that beyond the medium, right? Like our ideas, our desires, and our calling in Christ are not affected. Well, they are affected. They are not diminished by masks.
That's a good word.
Social media, any of these things. They're not diminished by that, but they can be frustrated.
They can be frustrated, affected, disrupted.
However, sometimes disruption is the best prescription for malaise or lackadaisicalness.
And that's something, I mean, I've thought about as far as, like, for instance, COVID has certainly boxed everybody into spaces where connection with other people in a vital way has been disrupted. And the way that we've been living the last couple of years and the way things are sort of projected to go, like the way to reach people and connect is often in a virtual way. But what happens when we go, that's not my purpose. My purpose isn't necessarily to connect with 1 million people. I just want to deeply connect with like 50. Now, from a business model, that gets a little bit more complicated. But purpose-wise, I don't know.
But I think that the problem is that it is disrupting the connection with my purpose isn't bolstered by connecting with 1 million people. My purpose is bolstered by connecting with you and talking to you. And that's just one person that would be disruptive if they disrupted.
It could.
It could be disrupted.
It could, but thankfully no one has shut our cell phones down or email. But we've never emailed. We have to do that sometime.
Stuck in the 90s.
Hey, build your email list, brother.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, now that I know they can just yank away. Oh, we've got
comments galore. What's up, Owen?
This one, Owen Martinez. What's up? What's up, brother? Glad you tuned in. Thank you for tuning in. Nice
We
little.
hope you found your porpoise.
Your porpoise. Yeah, it's just hard. You know what also brought this on was not just personal malaise, but talking to friends and clients and students. I just, one phrase that really struck me was I said, are you, if someone checked in with me and, a client or a friend. Hard to tell with me, but a mentoree. We'll say that.
Yes, a mentoree.
A mentoree. And I said, "Are you lonely? Are you bored?"
A young man under your
And
tutelage.
yeah, or once was under my tutelage. It's sort of, there's been time between then and now. Uh, and he said no, because of Discord, which I thought was
Huh.
was an
Okay.
interesting phrase. But Discord, do
Due
you
to
know what Discord
Discord.
is? Due to Discord, I am no longer bored and lonely.
Yeah.
But Discord
I
is
get
is
lots
a
of attention. It's negative, but I get a lot of it.
no,
I'm
but
not
he was talking
lonely.
about Discord, the app that you can talk through. It's
Oh,
like it's a social media app.
okay. Thanks to a
What the
thing
kids are
called
using.
Okay, the kids are using a thing called Discord, which I have
Discord.
no idea what that is.
Yeah, yeah, and so, but I thought that was an amusing sentence. I'm no longer
I'm no
lonely
longer
or
lonely
bored because of Discord.
because of Discord.
And I kind of felt like, well, that's kind of why I'm I'm lonely and bored, is because of Discord. But then, you mean the app? Yeah, yes, yes.
I'll have to look
Yeah.
this
It's where
thing of which you speak.
you can talk and video chat and stuff like that. And so, but it made me sad at the same time that you have a whole generation that's growing up. Their social interactions are this, like me and you
Well,
went.
and see, that's what I'm saying. Like, short game, like this is where we are, right? Like, a lot of people are connecting on video, and this is going to go back to purpose very quickly
Okay.
because I think purpose is an ever evolving on a horizontal level. Purpose is always evolving. It's changing with the environment. It's changing with circumstance. It's kind of getting dialed in there. And so you know me. I'm getting older. We're getting older. You and I are getting older. And the consequence of that is, it's like, well, I want to leave my mark now. And I think I've earned enough gray hair, or no hair, in my case, and that I have something to pass along. Maybe I've got something to give,
Back
something
to
of
legacy.
value. Yeah, back to legacy. And so I think about young men that are connecting with each other this way, and it's like, does anybody challenge them to like do what we did, like, and just go get out in the woods, go do something real, like not virtual, like real, like where you can smell it, you can taste it, you can you
Really
sleep
feel
up.
it when it's raining.
Yeah, you feel when it's raining, like you embrace the suck.
Yeah.
You feel your own vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and it that to me just sounds like opportunity, and I guess I don't want to lose sight of that all of these problems, yes, are this is a short-term problem. I agree with you. I think there are going to be some enduring aftershocks and after effects of COVID. Are people going to shake hands anymore? Are people going to be standoffish? That's a challenge. But I also think it's an opportunity.
Opportunity. I like that. My friend Joseph Rhodes he talked about a similar thing. He said there's a huge opportunity in the midst of this, and maybe beyond this, more to open places of. He said, like, we don't have the town centers anymore. We don't have the circle where we come, the marketplace. We don't have places. People are. I've noticed. What are they called? The markets, Saturday or Sunday and Saturday morning. What is it, like the
Well, I
farmers
mean,
markets?
I,
Those are booming right
oh,
now.
I was about to say, like, I mean, traditionally for me, to my wife's chagrin, one of the places that I has in the past have um, rubbed elbows with people is at farmers markets,
Mm.
and it's I kind of got lazy and just didn't get up early and go, but we've been a couple times this year.
Well, and well, okay. So in North Carolina, they're booming, but they're shut down in places like Illinois. They're castigated in places like
Sure.
Illinois.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that's what I'm saying. Like when we talk about government, um, I live in Tennessee, and then right across the border is Virginia. I don't know. There's a part of me just wants to say, well, I, I I feel real bad for the people in Illinois, and I don't know what to do with them. I don't live there.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't either.
I don't know.
I don't anymore. I do.
My heart goes
There's
out.
part of me, yeah. I harken back to a time when I did, which was months ago, and but also I worry about the influence on our, Tennessee and North Carolina,
Mhm.
as we're, you know,
Yeah, I gotta think that at some point the pendulum will. So, here's a concept like
okay, I want to hear that.
Americans and pendulum swinging.
Yeah,
Like our political cycle is generally, a pendulum swing. It's like, well, we're going to have a Democratic, you know, heavy House and Senate and maybe even the presidency for 4 to 8 years, and then we'll swing the other way, and then we'll swing back again. And so right now we're swinging one way in large parts of the
maybe.
country into isolation, but I would
Oh,
hope
nice.
that people will pendulate back to, man, we've really got to, like the pandemic's over. We've really got to embrace one another. Um, you know, maybe they'll just be
I,
big old hug-ins or something. I don't know.
I just have encountered too many people that are people. See, here's the problem: is that people that I respect and care about that are, oh no, oh we can't. I will never shake anybody's hand again.
Yeah, they'll
I
change their
didn't
mind.
even like it before. This kind of
Yeah.
thing is like, what? Like it was probably wrong to be gathering before. It's like all of a sudden I'm seeing a revisionist and the dark cloud over.
Well, but here's the thing: talk is cheap.
No, that's true.
Talk
That's true.
talk is cheap, and my struggle there is I can look anybody in the face and go, "Talk to me next year."
That
Just
is true.
see how that works for you. After you drag yourself out of a hole of depression, which I guarantee that you will go into, you'll revise that statement. Like
Well, it's
handshaking and hugging and being in close proximity to other human beings is healthy.
well. So
It's
here's the thing.
healthy.
Here's the thing that frustrates me is that I've been handshaking, hugging. I never stopped. I
Yeah.
never stopped.
Yeah.
My neighbors, everybody at work back in Illinois. Of course, we all got COVID.
Sure.
Nobody
Yeah.
died. Nobody was hospitalized.
Everybody got the COVID.
Zero. Uh, we all got COVID, and that's going to happen. Some people are going to die. It is true. Some people are going to be very sick, and I just don't. I feel like it's something we're going to have to deal with when it gets here.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
we can't stop being human so that we don't die. That doesn't make any sense to me. We can't stop being human so we don't die.
Okay. You know what? That ought to be on a t-shirt. Yeah.
Right.
It begs the question of quality of life. I mean, and I'll use a more extreme example of like cancer.
Okay.
It's like, you've got stage 4 cancer and the doctor says, look, you got two options. You can live a pretty decent life for a short period of time, or we can just like chemo this thing up and hit it with radiation, and you're it's not going to go into remission. You're going to die, but we can extend your life a little bit. We can extend it longer, but it's going to really suck. It's a quality of life question. You know, it's not a question of if people are going to die. People are going to die. I'm going to die. Everyone's going to die.
What's interesting is, do you remember Nate Goodwin?
I do.
I had this very conversation with them because I brought this up. It wasn't because of him. Because he recently died of cancer.
Okay. Whoa. Lord have mercy.
And, I didn't know you didn't know. Yeah, he recently died of cancer, and a couple of summers ago, I brought up exactly what you just said, right?
Yeah.
And I showed some studies, and because my grandfather had just been through chemo and it nearly brought him to death because of his stomach cancer, he is well today. Thank you, Lord. And so I brought up this thing, and a lot of Nate's friends came at me hard because they thought I was talking about him or something. And I was like, oh, I'm not saying Nate shouldn't, do chemo, but actually he reached out to me, and I'm not going to talk about a private conversation, but he said, I agree with you. And I've been, pretty much living my life. And he said, I'm doing everything I can. So I'm still doing chemo, but it hasn't been that bad. And I'm doing other things, to relieve the chemo. And he seemed to live out his life pretty well in the last days. So I don't know. It was interesting to have that conversation with him,
It's a difficult, and it's like one of those things you can throw that stuff out there, and ultimately everyone has to make their own calls. I have an uncle that passed away from cancer. It's been a while ago. And yeah, that was a big issue amongst other family members. Was he had some people in his life that were kind of heavy influencers, and that pushing him towards radical forms of intervention and treatment, that frankly, in hindsight, just gutted his quality of life. And
I will say this: it
didn't really link this.
Yeah, when and if or whatever I get cancer, there will be no chemo for me. I'm pro all the alternative. We'll say the alternative green approaches, and we'll see. But yeah, I agree with you completely.
So I mean,
it saved my grandfather's life, so it's hard for me to,
That's the thing. Like, it has to be weighed out, right? That's a cost benefit analysis, and it's one thing to have something that's terminal, like this is going to kill you.
Yeah.
No matter what we do, like we can stretch it out, we can lengthen it out.
Yeah.
But the cost of that might be not worth it. And I think that's the struggle right now with how we're dealing with things. It's like, at what cost are the measures that we're taking? Like we have to weigh that out, and I hope people would do that with some level of dispassion. Because if it becomes inhuman, or to what that's the difficult part. Like how long and to what degree. Like personally, I don't feel adversely impacted in a significant way. I mean, like,
yeah,
the only thing it's kept me from doing is it's like, well, do you want to travel to this city? And it's like, well, no, not really.
I didn't want to do that anyways.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't know.
Though I guess what it did to, I think it particularly affected. It's a particularly affecting me. Particularly affecting me and my family because we lived in Illinois, and it really divorced us in some ways a good way from our friends before we left. It made the the move clear,
Okay.
and but at the same time, when you divorce from friends, it's you want to reconnect on the other end, and coming here, we have reconnected with some friends, but it's like, with the new wave, is church going to be canceled again? And are they going to, and all, you know, places we would now our school, thank God, has been a bright shining light. It's classical conversations, plenty of conservative and just clear thinking people that we're able to meet in person and be there and talk, no masks, and be there carnally with, well, not carnally, but you know what I mean, incarnate
Yes.
with each other. That's been good. That's been really good to just be present with people and connect with people.
Yeah,
And I feel though that being in a new place, things are at a much, so if normal life is up here, bustling and connecting,
yeah.
things are way down here,
Well,
even for North Carolina.
it's challenging because, like, here in Sullivan County, Tennessee, like, our COVID numbers are pretty high.
Oh.
And this weekend is my wife's birthday is on Friday.
Oh,
And
tell her
then
happy birthday to me.
oh yeah, and our anniversary is on Sunday.
Happy anniversary,
Yeah,
man.
so we've been married for 17. Well, we married for 17 years then. And
Wow.
it's nice to kind of get away from the kids and go do something. And it's like, well, what are we going to do? And we kind of we talked about it a little bit like a week or so ago, and I kind of kicked the can and forgot. I didn't forget. I just didn't really bring it up. So we're just talking about it last night, and like we're just going to jump down to Knoxville for a while over the weekend, hang out without any kids. So this is the thing. Like, when I hear government, like, that's just an overarching thing. Like, I don't know what that means.
It's a boogeyman.
It's a boogeyman, and but I think about from a local perspective, like, I'm careful about what I do here in Sullivan County. I've not really changed my habits necessarily much. Like, maybe we don't eat out as much, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But going to a city that I know that the numbers are statistically lower, it's kind of like, well, it's all good. Like, there's no harm in that. There's not really, there's less risk going out in public in Knox County, Tennessee, than there is in Sullivan County, Tennessee. It's just looking at things from a local perspective as opposed to some kind of broader, the government. Like, we're talking the federal government, state government, county government. But I could see, like, for you, like, the difference between Illinois and North Carolina is night and day.
It is, for sure.
I mean, those are culturally different.
Oh yeah. We went on a charter boat the other day, and dude wasn't wearing a mask, being like, "Hey, whoa, hey, stay your distance,"
Yeah.
No.
But it's implied risk, right? Like, he knows when he's taking people out on this boat, the likelihood of him infecting somebody, like the rest of the people on this boat, is pretty low. Like, if anything bad is going to happen, he's going to pick it up from somebody on the boat. But you're out in the open, in the salt air, in the breeze, and there's more to it than just simply, I didn't have a mask on.
Well, here's the thing that it comes down to. We're running out of time, but I do believe when it comes to purpose, I do believe that man's purpose is to worship God, and in that, we worship God with our bodies, and we do that through connecting.
And we do it together, right? Like we do it with other people.
Yeah, and I think that has been hindered, whether it is government or whether it is a spirit of fear, which is divorced from government, or not using that word too much, is devoid of government, but still present. The darkness that hovers over us. We don't have to call it government to
No.
to give a face to the boogeyman.
Okay.
But there. We do. I do think my cry, my T-shirt, my sigh is that we should not take away from our humanity to protect us from death.
Yeah. There are worse things than COVID.
Worst thing, COVID goes on the back.
And yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I hear you. There's a part of me that, yes, it's kind of like within a limited period of time, I'm willing to do X, Y, and Z.
Your tolerance is much greater than mine. Well, because it hasn't affected you the same ways.
I would agree with that. I don't really feel. I mean, I don't really feel that constricted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been constricting or restrictive on me here recently has been more to do with the election, and the general climate and tenor of our country and the way that things get done on the social media world.
I think I do believe that they're interconnected, but that is for a different podcast, a different night.
different night, different conversation.
I feel I really appreciate your perspective on the sense that when it comes to purpose, there is no force outside of us that can dictate that. Can they disrupt it? Yes.
They can make it more of a challenge.
But guess what? That's also part of humanity. Overcoming challenge.
It is.
Self-determination needs challenge. It doesn't need challenge. It is challenge, right? Like life on this earth is challenge. And so a little disruption, we got it.
It's okay. Adapt, overcome. It just forces us to be creative.
Yeah.
It forces us to reevaluate purpose and reevaluate our values, reevaluate, like what is it that we're trying to do here and what's important about it. So it's like
we're not of this earth. Our purpose doesn't have to do with COVID or government or any of this.
It doesn't. And it's okay if even like getting checked like that, it forces us back in on ourselves. I don't know if that's really a problem. I tend to think, gosh, this is really an opportunity to reevaluate and to find a better way. I mean, part of it is, I guess, also believing that all of these things that happen to us on a unique and individual level, all of these things are given to us in some degree by God.
Well, that's another podcast in itself. Some degree. What does that mean? Either it's given or it's not. What do you mean, some degree? Well, we'll talk about it.
Sure.
But that is interesting.
Providence and sovereignty and human agency.
Yeah,
right?
And influence, right?
It certainly there's influence, but it's kind of like all of my days are numbered, but maybe my day gets numbered by somebody that takes me out.
They can do that.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah.
While that was somebody's choice,
and that still doesn't affect my
ticket.
purpose.
It doesn't affect my purpose, and my ticket got pulled.
Yeah. Oh, well, another delicious discussion, man. I appreciate it. What are you gonna do now that you're not on Facebook, man? How are you gonna pass the time?
I don't know. I mean, seriously, like I used a little bit of it for business
Yeah,
type
no
things.
doubt.
Yeah, in networking and connecting with people.
Yeah.
And just keeping up with friends and acquaintances. I used it a lot for information gathering,
Yeah.
and that's a little frustrating because I kind of had accumulated a rather diverse friend list, which provided a lot of perspectives.
Diversity of perspectives. Yeah.
Yes, I mean a lot of diverse perspectives. Not as diverse, I think, as I would like. I'd actually wish it was more diverse. Um, but it was enough of a diversity to see like multiple perspectives on issues as things would unfold.
You know what frustrates me the most is the idea. It's the machine versus man. The machine looked at you and said, "Confederate militia, Psha! Cut him off."
Well,
And
and
here's the
not even
man
Confederate.
who
There's no stars and bars waving. I mean, we're talking
I'm
like
sure there was a Confederate thing involved. Civil
American
War.
Revolution. No, this is America.
Oh,
This is even
Revolution.
earlier. Yeah,
Wow.
I think it had more to do with just the M word that like because of all the stuff that was going on in Michigan and
Okay.
um
But here's a man. So you are probably one of the most pro indigenous people and just learning about and even like getting into, and even when you did the reenactment, you would be on the on that side of things rather than
well
yeah.
yeah. I mean that's why I don't know. It, they have their axe to grind. I have my axe to grind, and obviously, you know, and I understand how big business works as far as liability, like that from their perspective.
Yeah, you know a little bit about that.
Without even like them digging into it, it was just like it was worth them
Yeah.
just going, no,
Nobody.
none. So, you know, to me, it's kind of like, no harm, no foul. I get it. And again, as a libertarian, it's kind of like it was their platform.
That's right.
I was playing in their living room, and they said, "You know what? You got to go." That's fine.
It's their loss. It's their loss, brother. And hopefully, you get at least the
I
connection.
get out of Facebook jail.
Yeah, and I've known plenty of people to get out of Facebook jail.
I have no idea how this works. So I may just have to like rebuild my social media network from scratch. And that's
use
okay.
Discourse. Use Discourse.
I may just have to use Discourse or Discord or TikTok.
Discord. Maybe it's called Discourse.
I don't know.
Discord. I can't remember.
You know,
let me look that up because that would be really important.
It's
Discord.
And frankly, I may reevaluate like how many of my interests. I mean, you know, like really focus my social media use to be more purposeful.
So here's the tagline to Discord: your place to talk and hang out.
Your place to talk and hang out. See, I don't see. My thing is, I wasn't talking and hanging out.
Yeah, you weren't hanging out.
I like scroll and assimilate and synthesize, analyze, move along.
Your place to stalk people.
Exactly. True story.
Hey man, if it weren't for Facebook though, I doubt. Well, no, it was actually LinkedIn that reconnected us.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah. I was talking to you. I was like, Josh is into counseling now. He's in charge of. Oh man, I was like, wow, I got to check into this. I got to give him a call.
Yeah. And who knows? Like, I still have a LinkedIn account. I may need to just leverage that.
There you go.
I don't know.
Scott, thank you. Scott gave us a thumbs up. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, Scott, thanks.
Glad you tuned in. I hope you're doing well. I hope you've had a chance to connect with your granddaughter. It's such a great thing for you right now. And see, somebody else. See, Scott is also somebody who I connected through Facebook that I would have never known. Just like a beautiful connection that if they took that away, I guess there's other avenues. So it's not.
I suppose.
I suppose. Yeah.
Like how many of my Facebook friends have I called this year? Not many.
How many have you telegraphed though? Telegrammed. What's the old way of doing that?
Send a telegram. I don't know. I mean, not many. I mean, they're all, I could literally just, they're all on my phone, and I kept Facebook off my phone. So, people that I actually text,
that's another
or call on the phone.
It's another interesting discussion talking about the evolution of communication,
or the de-evolution of communication.
Maybe. But my dad was talking about how everybody's always he has a flip phone, and it's really hard for him to text.
That's beautiful.
He's so frustrated when people are constantly, would rather text him, and he's just like,
call me. Yeah.
He'll just like call.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've done that with friends. Like we'll start texting back and forth, and I'm like, this is dumb. We should just call each other.
Is it though?
It is.
All right. Well, that's another conversation. But I've enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for tuning in, Scott. Thanks for tuning in, Owen and others. Let's do this again next week if we can. Hell or high water.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Not a lot of creek around here, but
no, they're all out in Oklahoma and Alabama and different places. So.
Were they ever in North Carolina?
No. Not
what?
Well.
Yeah.
Not on a permanent basis. No.
Maybe here to steal my wife.
Not so. History lesson. The Creeks and the Cherokees actually had formal wars against each other, and no, the Creeks would come up into North Carolina.
Really?
Western North Carolina, South Carolina.
All right. Yeah, closer to you.
Yeah, up in the mountains, and even like where we're at in Toccoa. So where the AT starts on Blood Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Blood Mountain because there was a pitched battle between the Creeks and the Cherokees on that mountain.
Interesting. Oh. Well, yeah. So we forgot I cut you off before you could talk about that. The last time is that the Creek Don't Rise means like the Creek Nation.
The Creek Nation.
Indigenous Indians. Or indigenous. What do we call them? The
First Peoples, Indigenous folk. I don't know. I just call them Creeks.
Creeks. That's what they called themselves.
Yeah. Good enough for me.
By the way, have you ever seen, did I bring this up while we were camping? Have you ever seen Little Big Man?
You mentioned Little Big Man.
Yeah, I did. I did talk about it. You got to see Little Big Man. Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, I'll put that on my list.
It starts off, he gets abducted by the Indians. He calls them the human people. That's what they call themselves, the human people.
That's yes, that's pretty common. The people.
Yeah. It is beautiful. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you got to put that on your list.
I will put it on my list. Little Big Man.
All right. Well, to everybody, we'll see you later, and continue to fight against the battle. Fight in the battle against the forces that are trying to take away your purposefulness, trying to take away your connectiveness in a way that continues to connect you with other people and in a way that glorifies God, right? That's all we got.
Just got to resist.
Just got to resist. All right. Good night, everybody.